in our intro here, I talked about October 7th, 2023. 2023, this happened. And it cannot be a coincidence that it is just 4 days and ultimately say 1 day before the inauguration. Like, that cannot be random. That has to be a major factor, right?
It's
so what
huge.
does Hamas stare
Trump came out and said there's going to be hell to pay. And nobody knows what that means. By the way, I'm not even sure Trump knows what that means. But everybody knows one thing about Trump. He's unpredictable, right? You don't want to find out what he means. And so Trump put a huge amount of pressure on Hamas. He put actually some pressure on the Qataris. He put pressure on the Egyptians who've been brokering this deal. He put pressure on the Israelis, despite the fact that he's got a good, long-standing relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister. We don't know exactly what was being threatened, but nobody wants to find out. Nobody wants to start off on the wrong side of Donald Trump when he steps into office. So this was, without question, the big game changer. Everybody all of a sudden started to jump. And I got to say, as much as it says something about Trump and how much maybe the region fears him, I also have to say, where was Biden? Really, when you think about the last 15 months, this is a president that could have said, hey, all hell's going to break loose. We're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks. It's not what he did. He started asking for partners in the region to please work with him. Nobody feared him. Nobody wanted to go out of their way to make things happen for him. And so he had to limp along for the last 15 months. I think this is just a real indictment of Biden policy in the Middle East. And I think the entire region right now is looking toward Trump with some optimism, thinking that he just might be the guy that bares his teeth at Iran and actually backs that up, because as everybody knows, Iran is the primary patron of Hamas. They're the people who are behind the Houthi attacks, these ballistic missile attacks, and the harassment of American ships and the killing of American servicemen. It's the Iranians at the end of the day that I think are really worried. And all of those countries in the Middle East that hate Iran, that's Saudi, that's Israel, that's the UAE, it's all of the allies of the United States, they are cheering on the arrival of Donald Trump.
Yeah, wow, that's all the case study you would ever need is what's happening right now in real time. Okay, so at first glance, I don't love the deal, right? Like, if you just look at, if you don't really know the players involved or whatever, right? You're like 33 to what? How many Palestinian fighters? Like, that's not, what are we to, what do we get? What are we supposed to learn from that?
Well, look, back in, I think it was 2011, maybe it was 2010, the Israelis made a deal for one guy, a guy by the name of Gilad Shalit. He was an Israeli army corporal, and he was kidnapped along the Gaza border. And the Israelis ultimately traded 1,000 prisoners for him, including, by the way, Yahya Sinwar, the guy that ultimately hatched the plot of 10/7, the guy that ran the war until he was killed by Israel a couple of months ago in the Gaza Strip. This is now what Hamas knows it will get. It is, I think, probably the most wrong-headed Israeli policy. And I generally think that the Israelis know what they're doing. They're a top-notch military. They've got incredible intelligence. But as negotiators, my Lord, when you start to set a precedent like that, 15 years ago, of course they're going to try to do it again. And Hamas knew it. And so there's going to be a celebration. Right? Now, we don't know. I think right now the number is 1,600. At least that's what we've heard so far with the open press reports. There are going to be some of these guys that go back to the West Bank, some that go to the Gaza Strip, and I think some of the more nasty types that they don't want to have anywhere near Israel, they're going to send them to Qatar and Turkey, who are major patrons of Hamas. It's not going to play well. You're going to have a resurgence of Hamas for at least these 42 days. The Israelis know it, but I will tell you that the way that the Israeli public, their hearts have been breaking for these hostages, and talking about a baby who was kidnapped, young women who are kidnapped and almost certainly raped repeatedly, the sexual crimes that have been committed against these women. The people here, they hold vigils constantly. The news is filled with stories of the hostages and the hostage families. This is going to be important to make this country here in Israel. It's going to be important to make them whole again. So they're willing to do it. They're going to get back as many hostages as they can. And then my sense again, though, is that even, after all of this is said and done, they're going to get back into Gaza and they're going to keep fighting until they get a surrender from Hamas. So from their perspective, look, the optics are not great. Hamas is going to celebrate. It's going to be a shot in the arm for them for a period of time, for these 42 days. But Israel, as I hear it anyway here, they're saying we are not going to let them live. So let them celebrate all they want. It's not going to last long.